Thanks so much, Mr. Chairman. Most Americans watching this hearing, if in fact there are any Americans watching this hearing, and why wouldn't they be interested in it, of course, but they might be wondering what in the world are ghost guns. The phrase certainly does sound rather ominous. It sounds rather dangerous. I think it's intended to. Maybe like something straight out of a young person's video game. Ghost gun, it's a vague and intentionally scary sounding term that's been designed by gun control activists to describe a type of firearm, any firearm that has a common characteristic, that is, it doesn't have a serial number. This broad set of firearms might include antique firearms, or some curios or relics produced prior to 1968. It might also include arms manufactured at home or from a mail-in do-it-yourself kit, or lastly, it might include firearms whose serial numbers have been removed. Now, first, it's important to remember that it's a federal crime under 18 U.S.C. Section 922K to file off or otherwise remove or obliterate or alter a serial number, or to acquire a firearm that has had its serial number removed, obliterated, or altered. Most states have criminal statutes that are similar to 922K. Anti-gun activists would like for you to believe that making your own firearms is a new, crazy trend, an emerging, dangerous phenomenon. Those who might want you to believe this neglect, of course, to mention that the American tradition of privately made firearms started with the colonies, and it continues today. In fact, the Continental Army relied very heavily on privately made firearms. And John Moses Browning of Ogden, Utah, who was known for revolutionizing the field of firearms, inventing rifles, pistols, and shotguns, and machine guns. Browning invented and made all of these firearms privately, only later selling the patents to companies like Winchester. Privately made firearms are part of our American story, a story of hard work, of innovation, and of ingenuity. These anti-gun activists would like you to believe that privately made firearms pose a new danger to society. They use misleading statistics to make it sound as if privately made firearms are commonly used to commit violent crimes. For example, the ATF's notice of proposed rulemaking says, quote, from January 2016 through December 31st, 2020, there were approximately 23,906 suspected PMFs, or privately made firearms, reported to ATF as having been recovered by law enforcement from potential crime scenes, close quote. But these crime scenes, of these crime scenes, where privately made firearms were recovered, only 325, or 1%, involved homicides or attempted homicides. So it's important to look at what the numbers actually say rather than what one might glean from them at a distance. Now let's look at how one should analyze the Biden administration's proposed rule on privately made firearms. The Second Amendment to the Constitution protects Americans' right to keep and bear arms. When analyzing any gun control proposal, I look at the likely impact it will have on the constitutional rights of law-abiding Americans, those who build their own firearms as a hobby or for marksman competitions or to make better, safer firearms, perhaps for their own use. Not to mention that the Biden administration is attempting to change the law through rulemaking instead of through coming to Congress. I'm convinced that proposals like the proposed rule the Biden administration issued on Friday will most certainly affect those law-abiding Americans who use 80% lower receivers or receiver blanks while doing very little to stop criminals who want to use guns in order to hurt other people. This proposed rule will also get us one step closer to firearm registry, one of the top goals of many who are part of the anti-gun left. So these are concerns. I think they're real concerns. They're legitimate concerns. And I think we've got to be careful with the terminology that we use. Just as importantly, we've got to look out for the interests of the law-abiding. And it's those people, the law-abiding Americans, whose rights are very often eroded whenever government steps into this area. Thank you.